Welcome into SEC Primetime Live here on the Voice of College Football. Andrew Miller with Josh Mahler. And joining the program, we got Austin Farmer, who covers the Arkansas Razorbacks for the Hogs on the Hill pod. And Austin, I've already blanked on where we can find your writing just within the 5 minutes. It's not even that long since I asked.
Yeah. You're good. It's bestofarkansassports.com.
Okay, there we go. Check out Austin's work there. bestarkansassports.com. We needed to talk about Arkansas. We had to have an Arkansas guest on because it's been a wild day across Arkansas football. Obviously, the Hogs have been in a coaching search for several weeks now since moving on from Sam Pittman. You know, they've gone through, is Bobby Petrino going to be the guy once again? We've had a lot of different names come up throughout this search, and this morning you get the news from Trey Schapp, who covers the Razorbacks for 1037 The Buzz, saying that Alex Golesh from USF was going to be the next coach. I know that since that point, there's kind of been conflicting reports quite a bit. 247, I think their word is, hey, there's been a contract offered, but nothing official yet in terms of it being approved or being accepted. And I know as of tonight, you have people from the South Florida side of things already contesting that any sort of move is official here. Does certainly seem like Golesh is the leader in the clubhouse, and the job may be his if he wants it. But Austin, just what is the overall feeling right now? What have you heard? I mean, do you think it's going to be Alex Golesh as the next head coach in Fayetteville?
I mean, if I had to put a bet on it, I would probably say yes. But what Trey did is he kind of really pissed some people off on his side uh, of the equation, and it kind of makes sense. He's got one more game left, at least one more game left with South Florida, and he probably wanted to go and talk to his players, and so they didn't have to find out through social media. So I get that, but is that enough to persuade him not to come to Arkansas, especially with some of the figures I've been hearing? I don't think so. But at the same time, I think it was more or less a handshake deal, and Trey kind of just got antsy with it and put it out. But yeah, I think if I had to, I'm not a betting guy. I really suck at betting, so I don't do that a whole lot. But if I were, I would definitely put it on that he's going to be the next head coach at Arkansas.
If he is the guy, what is your feeling on that? Because I know I've seen a lot of different opinions from Arkansas fans on it, and you're going to get that with any coaching search. Everyone's going to have different feelings on candidates because you scrutinize everything you can about these guys because of how big the role is. But where would you land on it if it is Alex Golesh as the next coach?
Yeah, so I like it. I convinced myself like a month ago that he was the guy. I can't say the same for everybody else. There's a lot of guys, a lot of people around Hog Nation that aren't feeling a type of way, and I think that has more to do with how this search went on. We were in the mix for James Franklin at the beginning of this thing, and we had all these rumors that, hey, Walmart's actually pitching in more money, and everyone in the NIL and the rev sharing, all that's going to be sunshine and rainbows. And then obviously Virginia Tech got Franklin, so we're kind of left in the weeds here. And then you go, and now there's rumors of Matt Campbell, and then a mystery Power 4 coach from the Big 12. Just rumors of that coming through, and then all of a sudden you end up with Alex Golesh. So I can see how some fans might have had that hype at the beginning, but now you get stuck with Alex Golesh. But I'm look, Hog fans, if you're listening to this, it's a good hire. I mean, look at the tree he's come from. He comes from Heupel, and he's got a great offense there at South Florida. He took over a South Florida program that hadn't won more than 4 games in like 4 years, and then all of a sudden he goes 7-6, 7-6, and now he's I think won 8 games. He's won 7. He has a chance to win 9 games with Florida with this next game, and the bowl game after that. No, 10 because he's got 8, 8-3 right now. So I don't think that people have really dug deep in it because you, Josh, we're kind of in the weeds with this. We know like the little nuanced things about these coaches that make them great coaches. But a basic fan just seeing, where he's coming from, maybe the record 7-6 isn't that sexy either. But we know how like that offensive mind works and how he's really built that program up, I think he's going to do really good. I mean, I don't. I kind of wish it was James Franklin. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of wish it was Matt Campbell. Not gonna lie, but if you get stuck with Alex Alex Golesh, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious too because you mentioned he's comes from Josh Heupel, was an offensive coordinator over at Tennessee, so he's got some SEC ties. Obviously, now over in the G5, he is the first head coach there at USF, I believe, to win 2 bowl games in a row. So I mean, it's something. He's definitely brought a program, like you mentioned, a program that is really nothing to something. How does that translate over if he were to be able to come over to Arkansas? How does that translate over to what he'd be able to do as a head coach in the SEC?
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to connect the dots to Lane Kiffin, but I mean, look at like what Lane Kiffin did before he got to Ole Miss. He didn't really have a great record, but then he went to FIU and did pretty good there, and then made the move to the SEC. And really, he's thrived in this era of NIL. And I think that Golesh, who took over a program like we've been talking about, who had done nothing for 4 years before he got there, and finally dipped into that that Miami, South Florida type money, and really built, or not Miami, Tampa, and built something decent there. Now, if he comes to Arkansas, the big thing that has to happen is the boosters have to get in line, right? They have to be sold, and that's one of the things I'm worried about with Golesh. I think X's and O's, Jimmy and Joe's, he's going to be very good, but is he going to be sexy enough to get those boosters to finally start, emptying out their pockets and paying what the rest of the SEC is doing? I mean, go back, I think it was a year ago or so, that a report came out and it talked about the recruiting staff in each building in the SEC. And Arkansas had the least amount of people in that department, except for Vanderbilt, right? And if you look at the field right now, look at the defense. Obviously, it's one of the worst in the country. It's because they don't have enough people to evaluate film to really know who's worth spending money on. So that's one of the things they've got to get fixed, and that comes from the boosters. And I just don't know if he's going to be that sexy hire enough to get those people excited. Now, he can go in there and maybe, convince some people, but I think it's going to be more of a process, and Hawk fans probably going to have to be a little more patient than what they want to be.
With Golesh, obviously, you're getting offense. That has been the thing with him throughout his career, and that kind of feels like a trend for Arkansas for quite some time. They have
Yeah.
prioritized that. Is there any concern about the defensive side of the ball and what that might be with him? Because obviously, like you said, that was a
Yeah.
big issue this year. It's probably, I think it's been an issue for a couple seasons now. Although I think Travis Williams, I did think, did a pretty good job a season ago. I know it fell apart this year. Um, you know, his defense at USF this year, they were kind of opportunistic, but throughout his tenure, they've kind of been a weak spot, and they've had some tough games against better offenses this year. Any hold up there about how that would translate coming over to Arkansas?
Yeah, I a little bit, but not as much as if they went with Eric Morris. There's a lot of people, if you talk to Oklahoma State fans, they're going to say they stole Eric Morris from Arkansas. I 100% don't believe that. I think behind James Franklin and whoever that mystery power forward coach was, I think Alex Golesh was the next guy. And you can go and you see who won that battle between Eric Morris and Alex Golesh. I mean, Eric Morris has UNT running, right? They've got probably the best offense in the country, and they held them to like less than 30 points. So I'm not super worried about it. I still like having an offensive based team versus defensive. That's just from a fan's perspective. I like to watch points scored. But I think, again, this goes back to the money. If we can get boosters to put up some cash, I mean, they can go out and find an elite DC and run with Golesh. I think there's a little bit of a hesitancy there since Arkansas hasn't been able to do it in the past, but I'm hoping that he energizes the boosters and the people who have money a little bit enough to where we can get that elite DC.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned earlier a little bit with everything kind of being broken, maybe a little too premature. Oftentimes that can happen where media breaks that out, and then the coach ends up kind of resenting whatever happened there. Might not even be anything of the university's fault. You know, the wrong person heard the news, and maybe the wrong part of the news got pushed out, and then of course this story ends up breaking out. So I mean that's still on the table, whether that happens or not. I guess time will tell. Or maybe Arkansas wasn't really going through with any of this. Maybe the case is that Arkansas ends up finding out that there is another guy. I know that it's been quite a push that Arkansas really wants to try to get some papers signed here. Some kind of contract signed with whoever that coach may be here by the end of this weekend. If it doesn't end up being Alex Golesh, who are some of the guys that you would expect Arkansas to have kind of coming out there as the names? I know there's been quite a few names kind of being broken out as possible candidates, but who are the guys that you really think will be there at the top of the list if it weren't Alex Golesh?
Now, I think they really want to get it done before the end of this weekend, and that's because you got the Ole Miss job over there, just waiting for Lane Kiffin to choose between LSU and Florida, and Golesh is probably their number one guy right now, and so you kind of want to steal them from Ole Miss, and I'm pretty sure Andrew would like to not have Golesh going against them every single year too, but I think the two names that really stand out to me right now, and this kind of goes back to like Pete Thamel at the end of the game against Texas. He brought up four names: Alex Golesh, Ryan Silverfield, Kane Womack, and Eric Morris. Well, Eric Morris and Golesh, off the table no matter what here. So those other two names are the two big ones that I think of. Kane Womack is probably the next guy if it doesn't work out with Golesh, because Kane, they've been wanting to go DC or defensive oriented head coach, because we've had all those offensive guys for the last few years. So just trying to do something different, I guess. But Kane Womack also played at Arkansas for 2 years back in the early 2000s. He's from Fayetteville. So there's a lot of connections there, and that's not a prerequisite by any means, but it is a plus, right? You know, a guy who's going to come in here and actually use the talent that's in state, which Sam Pittman hadn't done. And then Ryan Silverfield, I think he's kind of like bottom of the barrel. Like, if we don't get anybody we want, that's like the last guy standing. And to be honest, I'm kind of in that boat too. Like, he's got some appeal to him, but at the same time, he's had a lot of people, a lot of talent there in Memphis, and he hasn't like won the conference, American Conference, the entire time he's been there. And then what do you call it? You look at like Norvell, and I can't remember the guy who was there before Norvell, who went to Virginia Tech. Yeah, and they haven't done good either. So I'm just like, I want to stay away from Memphis. So those are probably the two guys. And then the coach from Kansas State, he's the next like dark horse one that I've heard about, but I don't believe that at all. So
I will say for Womack, something that's gotten kind of overlooked. I think people forget he was the head coach of South Alabama and had a 10-win season there. And like, that program did not do anything before him. I mean, they did beat Mississippi State that one year. That sucked, but they did. That's about it South Alabama had done. And then since that point, they've not had a lot of success. So he's shown it as a head coach as well, and has been pretty successful as a DC. I guess going back to Golesh for a second, I mean, if he is the guy, how heavily are you pushing to get Byron Brown to get to Fayetteville?
I like him. I'm not gonna lie. He's pretty electric. There's one. I think it was against Memphis too. There's one clip that's going around right now where he's just super fast, and then he's also got that ability to like jump over people, and and he's kind of got that it factor. He's kind of like Tailing Green light, if I had to say anything about it. I don't think he throws very many interceptions, so that will be different. Won't have that next year in Fayetteville. But to be honest, I really like KJ Jackson. I'm hoping that whoever comes in if Alex ends up not coming the faithful, that they give KJ Jackson a chance. Because if you watch the last half of that game against Texas, even though it's torture, the kid had 200 something yards passing. He was around 50%, but he had a touchdown and then a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown, and that's against Texas #1 squad. So I don't know. He's a lefty, which is a little bit weird watching. But other than that, I really like the cat. And so I kind of hope there's at least a quarterback battle with the next guy that comes in if Jackson opts to stay.
I'm a lefty, so don't be making fun of him too much.
I'm not making fun. It's just hard to watch.
Well,
It's like
look,
I want to just flip the screen around.
I will say, if it's Golesh, I agree with what you said. I think it'd be a really good hire. And I know all the reasons you pointed out for why some Hog fans are not fully on board. You understand it. Like, people are going to pick these things apart. And also, you get hyped up for the idea of a bigger name. It just becomes natural if that's not the guy. But even if it's not him, I think some of those other options are quality choices as well. So we'll definitely see how this shakes out. We know we've got a few more days of waiting, I guess, until this becomes official, unless Arkansas is able to get pen to paper. But definitely a really interesting coaching search to watch. Austin, thanks so much for taking the time to come on and talk about the search. We greatly appreciate it. I know we kind of threw this on you last minute this morning, but really appreciate it. And we'll see how this turns out for Arkansas.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to be here talking some ball with you guys. And yeah, whoop pig.